The stark landscape of the Mojave Desert was interrupted by the sudden descent of a sleek, silver vessel. Its landing was silent, almost reverent, as if the desert itself had hushed in anticipation. In the remote confines of his research cabin, Jack Turner was jolted from his work by the tremor of the landing. Pulling on his jacket, Jack grabbed his gear and headed towards the site. The government had prepped him for a potential encounter, though potential had always seemed a theoretical term until now. As he approached, he saw another figure racing towards the landing site. Dr. Ethan Carter, a renowned astrophysicist known for his work on extraterrestrial signals. The two men exchanged a quick nod, their excitement palpable. "Did you ever think we'd see the day?" Ethan asked, his voice a mix of thrill and disbelief. "Frankly, I stopped guessing what to expect years ago," Jack replied, adjusting his backpack. "But here we are." The alien ship's hatch opened slowly, a light mist spilling out onto the desert floor. The silhouette of two figures appeared in the doorway, pausing at the threshold. They were remarkably humanoid, tall and slender, with an almost ethereal grace. Their skin had a subtle glow, and their eyes were a deep, iridescent blue that seemed to flicker with internal light. "Hello," Jack called out, stepping forward with his hand raised in a universal greeting. "I'm Jack Turner, and this is Dr. Ethan Carter. We're here to help." The figures, twins, it seemed, descended the ramp with cautious steps. The one on the left spoke first. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice melodic and resonant. "And this is my brother, Tyro. We come in peace and wish to learn about your world." Ethan, ever the scientist, was quick to respond. "We have much to share and are eager to learn from you as well. What brings you to Earth specifically?" Tyro, more reserved than his sister, scanned their surroundings before answering. "Our mission is to understand the diversity of life and emotion in the universe. Your planet is known for its rich cultures and expressions of what you call humanity." Jack smiled, intrigued by their choice of words. "Humanity can be complex. We experience a wide range of emotions and relationships. Perhaps we can start by showing you around." Lyra nodded. "We would appreciate that. We seek to experience these emotions firsthand to better understand the connections that drive your species." "Let's take you to our base of operations," Ethan suggested. "We've set up a welcome center for you, with information about our planet, its history, and cultures." As they walked back to the research cabin, Jack and Ethan explained various aspects of human life, from art and science to the more mundane aspects of daily life. Lyra and Tyro listened intently, their curiosity unfeigned. Jack noticed their fascination with the simple act of conversation. "Communication is vital for us," he explained. "It's how we solve problems, build relationships, and express our feelings." Tyro seemed particularly interested in this. "And is it always verbal, or do you use other forms as well?" "We use all kinds of communication," Ethan chimed in, "like music, art, and even silence. Each form has its own beauty and significance." As the group arrived at the center, a small crowd had gathered, kept at bay by security. Jack was aware of the need for privacy and discretion, but he also knew the importance of transparency during such monumental events. Inside the center, the twins were shown a series of displays depicting human achievements and everyday scenes. Cities bustling with life, serene landscapes, people of all walks of life sharing moments of joy, sorrow, and love. "This is just a glimpse of what we are," Jack concluded, watching the twins absorb the images. "But hopefully, it's a start to understanding the complexity of human life." Lyra turned to him, her eyes thoughtful. "And we hope, in turn, you will learn from us?" Jack nodded. "That's the plan." Welcome to Earth, Lyra and Tyro. Their arrival promised new insights, not just into the universe, but into the very essence of human experience. As the sun set over the Mojave, casting long shadows and bathing the landscape in soft golden light, Jack felt the dawn of something truly extraordinary. Jack led Lyra and Tyro into a comfortably furnished room inside the research center, where Dr. Alan Mitchell, a cultural anthropologist, was waiting. His expertise was crucial in helping the twins understand the intricacies of human societies. "Welcome," Alan greeted with a warm smile. I'm Alan Mitchell. I've spent my life studying how people live together, celebrate, and face challenges. It's a pleasure to meet beings from beyond our world who are interested in these aspects. Tyro nodded, his gaze sweeping across the room filled with cultural artifacts from around the world. We are eager to learn. On our planet, understanding is the cornerstone of peace. Alan pulled up a chair, inviting the twins to sit. Let's start with something universal: food. Sharing a meal is a fundamental human experience. Jack clapped his hands, excited. Great idea. Why don't we have lunch together? We can talk more casually, and you can experience our food firsthand. The group moved to a small dining area where a variety of dishes had been prepared. As they ate, Jack and Alan explained the significance of each dish. Lyra was particularly interested in the concept of spices and flavors, which were absent in their native diet. So, each region on Earth has its own typical flavors? Lyra asked, tasting a piece of spicy Indian curry. Yes, Alan responded. Food can tell you a lot about a place's climate, geography, and history. It's like a story on a plate. Tyro, who had been quietly observing, chimed in. Is this sharing of meals also a form of communication? Jack nodded. Absolutely. It's a way to welcome someone, to celebrate together, or even to comfort each other during tough times. The meal progressed with lively discussions about Earth's various cultural practices. Lyra and Tyro listened intently, their fascination with human customs growing. After the meal, they returned to the meeting room. Next, let's talk about art and music, Alan suggested. These are some of the purest forms of human emotional expression. Jack pulled up a series of images and played music ranging from classical compositions to modern pop hits. Lyra swayed gently to the music, a look of wonder on her face. This vibration, it resonates within us, she remarked, intrigued by the emotional impact of the music. Tyro was more curious about the visuals. These paintings, they capture more than just scenes, don't they? They capture feelings. Yes, they do, Alan agreed. Artists use their work to express complex emotions and ideas. Sometimes, it's their way of dealing with personal or societal issues. The afternoon was spent in deep conversation about the various ways humans express themselves. As the sun began to set, Jack decided to introduce another concept: sports. Sports are another crucial part of human culture, Jack explained as they walked to a nearby field where a local soccer game was in progress. They're about competition, yes, but also about teamwork, discipline, and fun. Watching the game, Tyro was fascinated by the team dynamics and the crowd's reactions. So, victory brings joy, and defeat brings sadness. Yet they keep playing? Exactly, Jack said. It's about the challenge, the process of improving, and the joy of playing. As they walked back to the center, the day's experiences had visibly affected the twins. Their understanding of human life had deepened, and their mission of learning about Earth's emotional landscape had truly begun. We appreciate this, Tyro said as they neared the building. Your world is very complex and beautiful, Lyra added. Thank you for sharing it with us. Jack smiled, pleased with the progress. There's much more to see and learn. We're just getting started. The day ended with plans to explore more aspects of human life in the days to come. Jack, Alan, and the twins felt a growing bond, one built on mutual curiosity and the desire to understand and share. The mission was turning out to be an enlightening journey for everyone involved. The following morning, Jack introduced Lyra and Tyro to Dr. Samuel Hayes, a psychologist specializing in human emotions and interpersonal dynamics. In the quiet confines of a quaint local cafe, they gathered around a small table, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the morning air. Good morning, Samuel greeted, extending a hand to the twins. I understand you're here to learn about human emotions. It's a broad and very nuanced field. Lyra, ever curious, leaned forward. We've noticed humans often communicate without speaking. Can you explain these nonverbal cues? Samuel nodded. Certainly. Nonverbal communication can be as informative as verbal. It includes facial expressions, body language, and even the physical distance between individuals. As if on cue, a couple at the next table laughed warmly, their hands touching lightly across the table. See that? Samuel pointed subtly. Their smiles, the way they lean toward each other, and the touch, all signal comfort and affection. Tyro observed the couple, his head tilted in fascination. Is this type of communication learned, or is it instinctual? It's a bit of both, Jack interjected. We learn some behaviors from observing and mimicking, but many emotional responses are instinctive. The discussion was interrupted by the cafe owner, Mike, who approached with a warm smile. Anything else I can get you folks? Just a bit more coffee, please, Samuel replied. And maybe a few examples of your pastries? Our friends here are learning about all aspects of human culture. Coming right up, Mike said enthusiastically. With pastries and coffee on the table, Samuel used the opportunity to explain the concept of hospitality. Offering food and drink can also be a form of communication. It's a way of welcoming and caring. Lyra tasted a pastry, her expression thoughtful. This is delicious, and this gesture makes us feel welcomed. Exactly, Samuel affirmed. It's all part of how we express emotions and manage relationships. Jack suggested they take a stroll in the nearby park to observe more public interactions. As they walked, they saw parents playing with children, friends laughing together, and individuals lost in the solitude of their thoughts. Samuel stopped to watch two friends sitting in silence, each lost in a book. Notice how they sit in silence, yet comfortably together. This is an example of how presence alone can be comforting to some. Tyro seemed puzzled. How do you learn these appropriate distances and interactions? It comes from experience and social cues that we pick up from childhood, Samuel explained. Humans often learn by trial and error. Social interactions are complex and governed by many unwritten rules. The conversation turned to the topic of personal space as they observed the varied distances people maintain from one another. Cultural context is crucial here, Samuel noted. Different cultures have different norms regarding personal space and touching. Lyra looked at the diverse group of people in the park. It seems complex, yet everyone here seems to understand each other. It's not always perfect, Jack chuckled. Misunderstandings happen, but that's also a part of learning about each other. As the sun began to set, the group returned to the research center. Tyro summarized his observations. Human communication is rich with unspoken elements. It's a delicate dance of gestures, expressions, and space. Yes, Samuel agreed, and understanding these can lead to deeper connections and empathy among individuals. The day ended with a plan to explore human emotions further through art and music, which Samuel promised would offer even more insights into the complex human psyche. Jack, Samuel, Lyra, and Tyro left the meeting with a greater appreciation of the subtleties of human interaction, eager to continue their exploration the next day. Jack arranged for a small gathering at his home to allow Lyra and Tyro to experience a casual social setting among friends. He invited a few colleagues, including Dr. Marcus Lee, a sociologist known for his work on human emotions and relationships. The living room was set up cozy and inviting, with soft music playing in the background. As guests arrived, Jack introduced Lyra and Tyro, explaining their mission in general terms to avoid too much curiosity. Marcus, ever the keen observer, was particularly interested in the twins' reactions to new experiences. "Welcome, Lyra, Tyro," Marcus said as he shook their hands. "I hear you're here to learn about human culture, especially the emotional aspects." "Yes, that's correct," Lyra replied. "We are finding human interactions quite complex and deeply nuanced." Marcus smiled. "They could be, indeed. Tonight should give you a glimpse into casual social interactions. Notice how people greet each other, the conversations they choose, and the way emotions are shared." As the evening progressed, Tyro observed a couple softly arguing in a corner. "What is happening there?" he whispered to Jack. "They seem to have a disagreement," Jack explained quietly. "Watch how they handle it. It's not just about the conflict, but how they manage it that matters." Tyro watched as the couple eventually resolved their argument with a hug. "So, physical touch can also communicate forgiveness?" "Exactly," Marcus joined in. "Touch is a powerful communicator. It can convey support, love, concern, and many other emotions." Later, as everyone settled into a comfortable rhythm, Marcus suggested a game of charades. an activity designed to showcase nonverbal communication skills. Lyra and Tyro were fascinated as each person took their turn, expressing various phrases or movie titles through gestures alone. This game, Tyro noted, it shows how much can be said without words. It does, Marcus agreed. And it's a fun way to enhance our ability to interpret those nonverbal cues. After the game, the group gathered around a fire pit in Jack's backyard. The mood shifted to a more reflective atmosphere as the fire crackled softly. Marcus shared a story about a significant personal experience, using it as a segue into a discussion about emotional expression through storytelling. As humans, we often share personal stories to connect with others on a deeper level, Marcus explained. It's a way of showing vulnerability and trust. Lyra responded thoughtfully. In sharing these experiences, you not only communicate your own feelings, but also invite others to empathize with you. That's right, Jack added. It's about creating bonds, understanding each other better. The conversation continued into the night, with each person sharing a little about their own life experiences. Lyra and Tyro listened intently, occasionally asking questions that prompted further discussion. As the evening came to a close, Tyro reflected on the night's lessons. I see now how multifaceted human emotions are, and how intricately they are woven into your interactions. Marcus nodded, pleased with their insight. And every interaction teaches us something new about ourselves and each other. It's a continuous journey. Jack thanked everyone for coming, feeling satisfied with the depth of exchange. Tonight was about seeing emotional communication in action, and I think it was a success. As the guests departed, Lyra and Tyro thanked Jack and Marcus for the enriching experience. We have learned much about your ways of connecting, Lyra said. It's a complex tapestry of expressions, both spoken and unspoken. Indeed, Tyro added, and each thread is as important as the next. Jack and Marcus exchanged a look of mutual understanding, both aware of the profound impact of the evening on their guests. As they said their goodbyes, they knew that Lyra and Tyro were taking away valuable insights into the human condition, insights that would deepen their understanding of the vast spectrum of human emotions. The next day, Jack planned a trip to the serene lakeside with Lyra and Tyro to explore the more intimate aspects of human relationships, romantic connections. He was accompanied by Dr. Henry Walters, a psychologist specializing in romantic relationships. The gentle waves lapped against the shore, providing a peaceful backdrop as the group settled on a blanket spread out under a large, leafy tree. Henry opened a small cooler and handed out light refreshments. Today, Henry began as he handed a sandwich to Lyra. We're going to discuss romantic relationships and the settings that often inspire them. Notice how the environment here, quiet, beautiful, and somewhat isolated, can influence emotions. Lyra took a bite of her sandwich, looking thoughtfully at the calm waters. Is the setting crucial for fostering romantic feelings? It can be, Jack replied. Settings like this encourage closeness and reflection. They can make people feel more open and connected. Henry nodded, then pointed to a couple walking hand in hand along the shore. Observe their relaxed body language and how they occasionally lean into each other. These are subtle cues of a romantic connection. Tyro watched intently, his eyes following the couple. How do these relationships begin? That's a great question, Henry said. It usually starts with a mutual attraction, which can be both physical and emotional. From there, people explore their feelings through dates, like sharing meals, walking together, or watching movies. Jack decided it was the right moment to delve deeper. Physical expressions of affection, like holding hands, hugging, or kissing, are significant in human relationships. They help to strengthen the bond. Could you show us what a simple, affectionate gesture looks like? Lyra asked, her tone curious but respectful. Jack thought for a moment, then gently took Henry's hand, demonstrating a friendly handshake that lingered slightly. This is a common greeting among friends, but with a romantic interest, it might last longer and feel more intimate. Lyra nodded, absorbing the information. And a kiss? She inquired, looking between Jack and Henry. Henry chuckled softly. A kiss can be a greeting or a sign of deeper affection. It depends on the context. Jack found himself explaining further. A kiss on the cheek can be quite casual in some cultures, while a kiss on the lips usually signifies romantic interest. Seeing their continued interest, Jack stood and demonstrated by air kissing near Henry's cheek, maintaining a professional distance. Like this, but with actual contact. It conveys warmth and affection. Tyro seemed fascinated. Human relationships appear to require a lot of understanding and sensitivity to these nuances. They do, Henry agreed. And communication is key. Partners must continually communicate their feelings, desires, and concerns to maintain a healthy relationship. The conversation shifted to emotional intimacy as they watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. Henry discussed the importance of trust and vulnerability in deepening romantic bonds. Sharing personal thoughts and feelings, supporting each other during tough times, and celebrating together during happy moments. These are the threads that strengthen a relationship, Henry explained. As darkness began to envelop the sky, Lyra and Tyro thanked Jack and Henry for the insights. Today has been enlightening, Lyra said. Understanding these emotional connections helps us see why humans value relationships so deeply. Tyro added, the complexity of your emotions and how you express them is truly remarkable. Jack and Henry smiled, pleased with the day's progress. There's much more to learn and share, Jack said as they packed up. And we're just scratching the surface. As they walked back to the car, the stars beginning to twinkle overhead, the group felt a sense of accomplishment. Today had not only been about explaining human love, but also about demonstrating the beauty of emotional connection, something that transcended species. Jack and Dr. Henry Walters decided that the next step in teaching Lyra and Tyro about human emotions and relationships would involve discussing the complexities of love. To make the experience more immersive, they invited the twins to Jack's home for an evening of conversation, storytelling, and reflection. The cozy living room was dimly lit, with the soft glow of a fireplace casting flickering shadows on the walls. Jack set down a tray of tea and biscuits on the coffee table as Lyra and Tyro settled into the couch across from him and Henry. Tonight, Jack began, pouring tea into the cups, we're going to talk about love. Not just the romantic kind, but all its forms. It's probably one of the most complicated emotions humans experience. Lyra sipped her tea thoughtfully. You say it's complicated. Is it not simply an expression of affection and attachment? It can be, Henry said, leaning forward, but love often comes with layers. It can be joyful and painful, selfless and selfish, clear and confusing, all at the same time. Tyro, ever the analyst, asked, can you give us an example of these contrasts? Jack smiled, taking a moment to think. All right, here's one. Imagine a parent who loves their child. That love is often unconditional. They do anything to protect their child, even if it causes them pain. But at the same time, they might feel frustration or sadness when the child makes decisions they don't agree with. Henry nodded in agreement. And then there's romantic love, which can be thrilling but also vulnerable. It involves trust, which means it can be damaged if someone feels betrayed. Lyra tilted her head, curiosity shining in her eyes. So, love requires both emotional strength and the willingness to be open to pain. Exactly, Henry said. That vulnerability is what makes love so profound. You open yourself up to someone, hoping they'll understand and care for you in return. Jack leaned back, resting his arm on the couch. There's also the love we have for friends and family. That kind of love builds over time through shared experiences. It's just as valuable as romantic love, but it expresses itself differently. How does one differentiate between these types of love? Tyro asked, his brow furrowed in thought. It's often about context and intensity, Henry explained. Romantic love usually includes physical attraction and intimacy. Platonic love, like friendship, is about emotional connection and trust without that physical component. To illustrate, Jack pulled a photo album from the shelf and flipped through its pages, showing pictures of his family and friends. This is my mom. She's been there for me through everything, good and bad. That's familial love. And here, he pointed to a group photo of himself and several people laughing. are my friends from college. We've shared so many memories that even though we live far apart now, we're still close. Lyra and Tyro studied the pictures intently, absorbing the unspoken bonds that tied the people in them together. These connections, Lyra said softly, seem to shape who you are as a person. They do, Jack replied. Love in all its forms influences our decisions, our growth, and even our happiness. Henry decided to shift the conversation slightly. Let's talk about romantic love specifically. It's a bit of a mystery even to us. Some people fall in love quickly, while others take years to develop feelings. How does one know they are in love? Tyro asked. Jack chuckled. That's the million-dollar question. For me, it's when you think about someone constantly, care about their happiness as much as your own, and feel a connection that words can't fully explain. Henry added, it's also about compatibility and shared values. Physical attraction might ignite the spark, but lasting love is built on understanding, trust, and commitment. Lyra leaned forward, her hands clasped. And what happens when love ends? Does it disappear? Jack paused, his expression turning somber. Sometimes it fades. Sometimes it ends suddenly, like when people break up or lose someone they care about. But even when love ends, the impact it had on your life remains. Tyro looked intrigued. So love, even when painful, is something humans value deeply? Henry nodded. Absolutely. The lessons we learn from love, whether it's joy, loss, or growth, shape us. It's one of the most defining experiences of being human. The room fell quiet for a moment as the twins processed everything they'd heard. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice thoughtful. We understand now why you value love so much. It is not just an emotion, but a journey with its highs and lows. Exactly, Jack said. And while it's complicated, it's also one of the most rewarding parts of life. The conversation continued late into the night, each person sharing stories and reflections. By the time the fire had burned down to embers, Lyra and Tyro had a much deeper appreciation for the intricate web of emotions that humans navigate in their relationships. As they left Jack's home, Lyra turned to him. Thank you for sharing these insights. Love is indeed complex, but it is also beautiful in its depth and diversity. Jack smiled. It's something we're still figuring out ourselves, but I'm glad we could share what we've learned with you. The twins walked away, their glowing forms fading into the night, leaving Jack and Henry to reflect on the day. The twins' curiosity had not only deepened their understanding of human emotions, but had also reminded Jack and Henry of the profound connections that made life meaningful. The following day, Jack and Dr. Henry Walters decided to engage Lyra and Tyro in an exercise that would test their understanding of the emotional and physical nuances they had been learning about human relationships. Jack suggested a hands-on demonstration of teamwork and trust, which he believed would provide the twins with deeper insight. They gathered in Jack's spacious backyard, where he had set up a few simple tasks. A wooden plank balanced on a set of bricks served as a makeshift seesaw, a small climbing rope hung from an old oak tree, and a stack of puzzles sat neatly on a nearby table. Today, Jack began, clapping his hands together. We're going to do something a little different. We've been talking about emotional connections, but now we'll look at how trust and cooperation work in human relationships, especially when two people are involved. Tyro studied the setup, his glowing eyes narrowing. These appear to be physical activities. How does this connect to emotional bonds? Good question, Henry said, stepping forward. In relationships, trust isn't just emotional. It can also be physical. When you rely on someone else to complete a task with you, you're demonstrating trust, coordination, and shared responsibility. Let's start with something simple. Jack gestured to the seesaw. The idea is to balance it together. One of you stands on one end, and the other on the opposite. You'll need to communicate to find balance. Lyra stepped onto one side of the plank, while Tyro moved to the other. The board tipped heavily toward Tyro at first, and he looked confused. I am heavier than Lyra. How do we account for this? That's where communication comes in, Jack said. Talk to each other. Adjust your positions until the plank is level. Lyra took a step forward, the plank shifting slightly. Tyro, move back a little, she instructed. Tyro complied, and the board began to even out. After a few minutes of careful adjustments and verbal guidance, they achieved balance. "We did it!" Lyra exclaimed, her tone filled with satisfaction. "Exactly," Henry said, smiling. "You worked together, communicated, and trusted each other's actions." The next task involved the climbing rope. Jack tied one end securely to the tree and explained the activity. "One of you climbs, and the other offers support. You'll need to decide how to split the tasks and ensure you're both safe." Tyro took the lead this time, gripping the rope firmly. Lyra stood below, guiding him as he climbed. "Watch your footing on the branch above," she said, pointing. Tyro paused, adjusted his grip, and carefully followed her instructions. Once he reached the top, he called down, "Your turn. I'll guide you from up here." With Tyro's steady encouragement, Lyra climbed the rope and joined him on the branch. When they descended together, Jack and Henry clapped. "Great teamwork," Jack said. "You trusted each other and worked as a team. That's a big part of how humans navigate challenges in relationships." The final task involved solving a puzzle together. The twins sat at the table while Jack and Henry observed from nearby. The puzzle pieces were small and intricate, requiring patience and precision. At first, Lyra and Tyro worked separately, but they soon realized their progress was slow. "Let's combine our efforts," Lyra suggested, sliding her pieces toward Tyro. "Agreed," Tyro said. They began discussing which pieces fit where, occasionally debating but always listening to each other's input. Within minutes, the puzzle was complete. Henry leaned forward, smiling. "What did you learn from that?" Lyra thought for a moment. "That cooperation is more effective than working alone, even if there is some disagreement along the way. And that trust builds naturally when you share a goal," Tyro added. Jack nodded. "Exactly. Trust and communication are at the heart of any strong relationship, whether it's friendship, family, or something romantic." As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the twins expressed their gratitude. "These exercises have shown us the depth of human relationships in a new way," Lyra said. "You have a remarkable ability to connect through both emotion and action," Tyro added. Jack and Henry exchanged a look, both feeling a sense of accomplishment. The day's activities had not only taught the twins, but also reminded them of the importance of collaboration and trust in their own lives. The group stood in the fading light, their bond stronger than before, ready to face whatever lessons awaited them next. The final day of Lyra and Tyro's stay on Earth arrived. Jack and Dr. Henry Walters met the twins early in the morning at the research center. The mood was bittersweet. Both men had grown fond of the curious and insightful visitors, but they knew their departure was inevitable. The group gathered in a quiet meeting room, where a projection screen displayed a montage of moments from the twins' time on Earth. Jack had put it together the night before, selecting highlights of their experiences, learning about human emotions, attempting puzzles, balancing on the seesaw, and sharing meals. Lyra's glowing eyes softened as she watched the images. "These experiences have been transformative for us. Your world has taught us more than we could have imagined." Tyro nodded. "We came here to learn, but we are leaving with something far greater, a deeper understanding of connection and trust." Jack smiled, leaning back in his chair. "And you've taught us just as much. Watching you explore our emotions and relationships reminded us of the beauty in things we sometimes take for granted." Henry added, "It's rare to reflect so deeply on what makes us human. Your curiosity pushed us to think beyond our routines. And for that, we thank you." Lyra turned to Jack, her tone sincere. "We were particularly moved by the concept of love in its many forms. It's a powerful force that shapes your lives, even in its most challenging moments." Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It does. And while it's not always easy, it's worth the effort. Love is what connects us, drives us, and keeps us moving forward." Tyro stood, gesturing toward the screen. "These memories will serve as a foundation for our mission. We will share your perspectives with our people, helping them understand the depth of human emotion and its value in creating harmony." Jack rose as well, clasping Tyro's shoulder. "Just don't forget to remind them that we're not perfect. We're still figuring things out ourselves." Lyra smiled faintly. Imperfection is what makes your species fascinating. It is in your willingness to learn and adapt that we see your true strength. Henry gestured to the window, where the twin suns of Earth's early morning cast a warm glow across the desert. Your ship is waiting. But before you go, we'd like to give you something. Jack handed them a small box, opening it to reveal a collection of items. A polished stone from the lake, a photo of the group, and a small globe of Earth. These are tokens of our time together. We hope they remind you of what you've learned here. Lyra accepted the box, her glowing hands carefully cradling it. These gifts hold great meaning. We will cherish them. As the group made their way to the landing site, the silence was filled with unspoken gratitude. When they arrived, the sleek alien vessel awaited, its metallic surface reflecting the morning light. The twins turned to face Jack, and Henry won last time. Tyro extended his hand, a gesture he had learned during his time on Earth. Jack shook it firmly, his voice steady. "Safe travels, Tyro. And take care of each other." Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Jack's arm. "Thank you for your kindness and patience. You have shown us the beauty of your world and your hearts." Henry crossed his arms, a small smile on his face. "Don't forget to visit again. Next time, we'll have even more to share." The twins nodded, their glowing forms shimmering as they stepped into their ship. The hatch closed behind them, and the vessel began to rise silently into the sky. Jack and Henry stood side by side, watching until the craft disappeared into the clouds. "Think they'll come back?" Henry asked after a moment. Jack chuckled softly. "I hope so. I think we all still have a lot to learn." As they turned to leave, the desert felt quieter, yet somehow more alive. Jack and Henry knew their lives had been changed by the encounter, and they carried that change with them, ready to share it with the world.